I fell asleep. They're like, oh my god. Yep. I know. We're late. Hi everybody. We're back at oh no, you don't know. Yeah, we're gonna be back we're back in Sea Power though. And big thing I've been doing over the past few days since the last stream is I've been poking around with the mods. Oh god damn it, Parasitus. What is this? Is that a hammer? Oh no. It's one of those. The hell's it called? Oh my god. You're gonna clean that up right now. You're gonna clean that up right now. You're not gonna leave that here in my chat. You hear me? You're gonna clean that up. You understand? You're gonna go back. You're gonna clean that up. And you're gonna act like, and we're both gonna act like I didn't see you do that. Because alternatively, things are gonna get really unpleasant. You understand me? Do you understand me? You're gonna go and clean that up. Now. But anyways, we're back at Sea Power. Yeah, we're back at Sea Power. And something I've been playing around with recently is I've been downloading a bunch of mods for this. It's actually really interesting to see what people have already done with this game, considering that right now they haven't yet. It's like Stalker 2, where modders don't have the ability to make new assets for the game yet. Let's actually pull this up now so you can see what I'm talking about. So you can actually see what I'm talking about. So all right, this is the Krivac 2, right? The ship models after the 40. Yeah, no, we haven't got to that point yet. Like I said, there aren't really new ship models yet. So there are some people who have used existing in-game assets to kit bash together some new ships, but they look kind of janky, like you mentioned. Let me actually show you one of those real quickly so you can see what I'm talking about. Where is guided missile? No. Missile cruiser. Okay, so this is a ship that was already in the game. The Virginia class nuclear guided missile cruiser, right? It's got the 2 arm launchers. It's got the 2 Mark 26 launchers on either end. Well, somebody used some already in-game assets, some existing stuff, and I don't even know where this came from, but they kit bashed some vertical launching systems onto either end of the boat. They don't look quite right, if you can notice, in particular because they've got the little pedestal where the arm launchers are supposed to be sticking up through the VLS. This is what I mean when I say, if they had actual proper asset modding, this would look a lot better, because you would have just a proper VLS here, not the little pedestal for where the arm launcher is supposed to be, and then a grid of whatever the fuck this is that's supposed to be a stand-in for the vertical launch system. Like I said, because this is not actually how a vertical launch system looks. But it's considering the fidelity level of the models, which are, like I said before, kind of like PS2 or like late PS2, early PS3 levels of fidelity, it's good enough. It's good enough for the scale. Although I do really hope we get some slightly less janky looking versions of this in the future, because there are other ships that currently do have a sort of vertical launch system that actually has proper animations and such. Notably, the Kirov class. You see this big grid right here? This is for, I was talking about this the other day. So I was talking about how the Kirov class uses the same anti-ship missiles as the Oscar II class submarine. And because the Soviets didn't want to spend the extra money to redesign the launch system, the Kirov class has to flood the launch tubes before it launches the missile. But that's not something you really see here, but this actually does let us show off what I mean when I was talking about the fuck is it called? The fuck is it called? Oh yeah, how the vertical launch system actually has animations. Because there's a big rocket going off inside the tube, and the water keeps the big rocket from damaging the tube. That's why, Parasitus. You either have it's an easy solution to keep the big rocket that's going off inside the launch tube from damaging the launch tube. There are other ways of doing it, but for a submarine, but that's kind of the only way you can do it in a submarine. And since this was originally designed for a submarine, that's how it works. And they just didn't want to design a whole new, they didn't want to spend the money to design a whole new system to do it on a surface ship. So they just used the submarine system where it floods the launch tube. Remember, that's the big thing about these launch tubes. You got a big rocket going off in there, and that makes a lot of fire. I mean, yeah, no, if it works, it works. It works. It's just because of that, there is a reason why that's a problem, though. There is a reason why that is, theoretically at least, a problem. The big one being that because you have to have a system to flood the launch tubes that are in the middle of the boat, that can really harm the watertight integrity of the boat and might make it easier to sink. Also, it means that it takes longer to launch your salvos. You have a slower you basically have a longer time. It takes longer to launch off your missile salvo, which means that you don't quite get the advantage of the near simultaneous impacts like you might get from a Western vertical launch system like Mark 41 or some of the later post-Soviet vertical launch systems for missiles like Caliber. But it was very much a trade-off. The Soviets knew what they were getting into. This wasn't like, oh, the Soviets are stupid. It was the Soviets wanted big boat. They wanted big boat that could launch big missile, bigger than any Western missile, and could go far and has big radar. But also the Soviet Union was starting to suffer from serious economic downturns. So they had to make, because this was it was the 70s. It was the start of the Soviet stagnation. What were the Kirovs built? I have to look now. Shit, I have to look when the Kirovs were built. 74. Yeah, they were built in 70. They started building them in 74. So yeah, it was 74. This is right around when the Soviet economy started making a downturn under Brezhnev. And as a result, they had to be able to do these things with less money than they really wanted to. And do it with less money than they budget. In the Norwegian case, it went from the first to the second because in the late 60s, they invented the oil. No, really. So this is the kind of warship you would normally build under these circumstances. It's smaller, it's cheaper, it's not as capable, but it's a design that if you really, really need to, you can build a good number of them. The Soviets, on the other hand, the Soviets really, really, really wanted big ship with big weapons to go shoot at American aircraft carriers. And, well, like I said, there's trade-offs that have to be made as a result. the Kirovs were very capable in their time, you know, in the 80s, from like the late 70s all the way through to like the mid 90s. They were very capable ships, but they're also a fundamentally compromised ship because of the circumstances they were built under. The more updated versions of them, like the Piotr Veliki, are again very capable ships. Even those are very capable ships now, but they still suffer from the problem of they're very compromised ships. There's a lot of compromises that were made in their design and construction because they were built in the Soviet Union. More specifically, they were built in the late Soviet Union. And I think I've said my piece on the late. Actually, I don't know if I've said my piece entirely on the late Soviet Union, but I think you know how I feel. If you've been around me long enough, I think you know how I feel about the late Soviet Union. Specifically, like basically the Soviet Union from like after the late 60s. From like the late 60s onwards is just a very long, very slow, very miserable decline that's masked by extremely loud masculine chest. I don't even masculine is not the right word, but like extremely loud chest thumping to try and be like, we're still relevant, even as the Soviet economy was kind of going into the shitter and oh man, it was just sadness. It was sadness and misery, almost entirely the fault of. Here's the thing: it didn't have to be this way. It arguably didn't have to be this way, and a lot of it is because when Khrushchev came to power, he really did. He had a really good intention. He really wanted to reform the Soviet economy and make it into something that could last more long term. Because he knew that the Stalinist policies were unsustainable, and that eventually the Soviets would have to become more open to the rest of the world and come out of their isolation. Stop chest thumping and being a big bully to their neighbors. But this all made sense. This all made sense. But the problem is he went too hard, too fast on trying to reform the Soviet Union when there were still a lot of people who really liked. Anyways, what was I saying? Oh yeah, I was talking about Khrushchev, right? I was talking about Khrushchev and how Nikita Khrushchev came into power in the 50s after the death of Stalin, which, oh man, that's an excellent movie if you haven't seen it. If you haven't seen The Death of Stalin, go watch The Death of Stalin. It's funny as hell. So Khrushchev comes into power after Stalin dies. Khrushchev wants to really reform the Soviet state and the Soviet economy. And a lot of the ideas he has are fundamentally good. Just reiterating everything in case of how much disconnect was lost in the disconnection, where I was saying that he realized that the Stalinist policies were no longer sustainable. The Soviet Union would have to move away from being a bully towards its neighbors to try and actually put its economy into a more functioning state that would last the long term. And that the Soviet people. Yes, he did, Parasitas. Except, I don't know if it was a heart attack. It may have been a stroke, actually. You're right, though. Point is, he had a serious medical event. That's the big thing. He had a serious medical event. But because Stalin had such a reputation of terrifying consequences, of terrifying consequences when he was disturbed or otherwise bothered, yeah, no, they didn't want to go in that room. They didn't want to go in that room and bother him because they didn't know what was going to happen to them. They had no idea what was going to happen to them if they did. Okay, we're facing this way. That's what I needed to know. So we can just do this way, launch the shipwreck, so you can actually see the missile itself. You see, it's the same missile that the Oscar-class submarine uses, actually. Get a closer look at it. We were showing this the other day. It's the exact same missile as the Oscar-class submarine. Also, I never noticed it had these on it. That's interesting. This right here is the Soviet anti-submarine missile. I know these are on the Krivak and the... fuck is it called? The Kresta 2. And the Udaloy. It's on the Kresta 2, it's on the Kresta, the Udaloy, and the Krivak. I never noticed that the Kirov had these. Huh. Anyways, so Khrushchev comes to power, starts undoing a lot of Stalinist policies because they were he saw them as unsustainable. Generally correctly saw them as unsustainable. And this could have all gone really well for the Soviet Union. But the problem is Khrushchev went too hard too fast. Also, Silex, are you okay? Oh well. I was supposed to drop a torpedo and then the top bit would fuck off. It wasn't supposed to just slam into the ocean. I mean, that means I don't have to worry about a random torpedo going around, which is nice. But let me check something, actually. So we're going to launch a helicopter real quickly. Not for the helicopter itself, but so that we have a... Oh, by the way, I love the way that helicopter hangars on Soviet warships work. The Kirov's is just a straight elevator, but some of the smaller ones, like the Kresta class, I think the Udaloy, and the Slava, they actually have a diagonal elevator that comes out because they want the helicopter to be kind of deep in the ship where it's less vulnerable to getting hit by something. They actually have like a diagonal elevator to put it down into the bottom of the boat, as opposed to a lot of US ships where the hangar is just kind of on deck and we just accept the risk of the hangar might take a hit. Difference in philosophy. It's just a difference in philosophy, but it's actually really interesting to see how it manifests. Okay, so I was saying about... What was I saying about? Oh, yeah. I was saying, actually, so how Khrushchev went too hard, too fast. He went too hard, too fast, and as a result, because Khrushchev went too hard, too fast, he pissed off a lot of people who were still loyal to Stalin and still rather liked Stalin. Particularly the guy I mentioned earlier, Leonid Brezhnev, famous for his massive fucking eyebrows. By the way, you should absolutely go and look up Leonid Brezhnev's eyebrows. They are like, do you remember the David Lynch Dune movie? The one from like the 80s? The Mentats in that version of Dune are really famous for having these huge bushy eyebrows that looked almost comical. Actually, they don't almost. They look downright comical. And the results of this... Actually, Oh yeah, so they have like almost like huge bushy eyebrows that look downright comical. Well, Brezhnev was basically, what if an actual person had those Mentat eyebrows from David Lynch's Dune? Where the fuck is this missile going, I wonder? Where did I tell this? Oh, that's where I said it to go. Like, where the fuck did I tell this missile to go? It's just like, I want to get away. I want to fly away. Yeah. 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 Ba-da-da-da-da. I want to get away. 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 If you hit the helicopter on US ships, you'll hear boss music. Oh no. Where'd you hear that one from, Parasitas? I'm actually, because I'm not actually familiar with where you're going with this. Where did you hear that one from? Anyway, so Brezhnev, as sort of a reaction to Stalin loyalness. Oh, it's a don't touch the boats bit. Okay. But anyways, so Brezhnev, as part of like a reaction against Khrushchev's policies by Stalin loyalists, re-implemented a bunch of the really, really bad authoritarian Stalinist policies that were authoritarian and super central planning Stalinist policies that Khrushchev recognized were unsustainable. Again, Khrushchev went too hard too fast, and then the reaction against that went back too far from what Khrushchev did. So you get this period where Brezhnev had not yet fully undone all of the Khrushchev reforms, and they were just starting to show results. And this is like the late 60s to the early, it's like the mid 60s to the early 70s, right? Khrushchev reforms are starting to have an effect. Brezhnev is just starting to undo them as part of the Stalin loyalist reaction that ousted Khrushchev from power. And you have this general, and so you have this like period, from like the mid 60s to the early 70s where things are actually really good in the Soviet Union, relatively speaking. Basically, you know, the economy is on the way up. Oh, it's going here. It's going here. You see on the map right here? This is where it's going. It just takes a while to get there because it's a long ass distance. It's just gonna take a while to get there because it's a long ass distance is all. But you know, things are pretty good in the Soviet Union around that time. But then they start to get worse. In the old refrain of Russian and Slavic history, and then things got worse. Boy. Because that's when, you know, like I said, there's a bit of an economic downturn. It doesn't all crash all at once. But you know, a little bit of a downturn. Economic goals aren't being met. The Soviets are starting to piss off their neighbors a bit more. The investment in the military is causing sacrifices to be made in manufacturing of consumer goods. People are starting to notice that things like, you know, oh, they were told they were going to be able to get a car in the next couple of years. That didn't happen. The waiting list for a new car got longer. Or factory workers noticed that the machines are starting to get a bit overdue for replacement. They were supposed to be replaced 5 years ago. In fact, the previous 5-year plan said the machines were going to get replaced. They didn't get replaced. Where are the new machines, Brezhnev? Where are the new machines, Leonid Ilyich? That, yeah, Nomad. Although I was going to get to that. And how that came later. We're still in like the late 60s in terms of the Soviet economic downturn. That's something that it started around this point, but it really started to get bad in like the 70s and 80s and continues on to this day. I'm just talking about how like the downturn it's just starting at this point. It's just starting at this point because Brezhnev has undone a lot of Khrushchev's reforms as part of a policy of, well, to put it bluntly, re-Stalinization. It's worse now. I don't think they would have admitted it. Yeah, no, oh my god. Yeah, no, modern Russia is fucked. That's really all there is to it. Modern Russia is fucked, and I know people that live in that country. I worry about them, especially because they are. Let's just say they hold up. Oh, rip. Ugh. Do you also hold opinions that are considered unpopular in Russia nowadays? Because I mean, that's the thing I was gonna is they have opinions that are unpopular, that would be considered unpopular in Russia nowadays, or things you're not supposed to talk about in public. But anyways, yeah, no, we got here because I was talking about why the Kirov class cruiser, and yes, it's a cruiser, it's not a battle cruiser. Battle cruisers stopped existing in the mid-20s. Battle cruisers stopped existing in the 1930s. Well, 1940s, late 1940s. They stopped existing in the late 1940s because the line of battle stopped existing in the late 1940s. Because that's the entire point of the battle cruiser. It is a fast cruiser type ship designed to fight in the line of battle. Line of battle no longer exists. This is not a battle cruiser. It's a heavy cruiser. It's a large cruiser. Not a battle cruiser. But I was talking about how the Kirov is ultimately a very capable design. Or and possibly humiliate yourself in public. It's not Stalin levels of fuck in Russia even now. It's more like I said, it's more like Brezhnev. It's more like just a continuation of the Brezhnev era of just massive corruption and stagnation. So yeah, no, you wouldn't be disappeared. We're not in Stalin times, but you would still have some nasty consequences. Like you'd probably lose your job. You would be forced to publicly humiliate yourself, pay a significant fine, or possibly serve a prison sentence. Things like that. Anyways, we've got our helicopter out here now, right? We're going to use this to spawn in a comparable ship to the Kirov class, or not a contemporary of the Kirov class, the Virginia class. So the Virginias are significantly smaller than the Kirovs. They are 11,000 tons as opposed to the Kirovs. What is it? As opposed to the Kirovs, 26,000 tons. Let's just call it 20. Let's round up, call it 26,000 tons. So it's 11,000. It's about half the displacement, but you still have a lot of capability going on here. Now, it approaches it in a different way. It approaches a lot of these in different ways from the Kirov. For example, the Kirov has multiple different weapon systems going on. You have the S-300, the ASA. Let's just use the anti-aircraft missile system as an example here. The S-300 and the ASA, right? These are the ASA launchers. And where's the damn S-300 launch system? I saw it earlier. Yep, they had to decommission Kirov to save the Pyotr Veliky. I know, yeah. Where's the damn launch system for the S-300 on this boat? Is it these in front of the... Actually, I can check real quickly. S-300F. Actually, let's just have the Virginia. Oh, wait, we don't have any aircraft on the Virginia. Shit. Oh, we can make this work, though. I know a trick for this. To make it work. Armed biz jet. We're going to have it fly towards the Kirov. We're going to have the S-300s launch right as the biz jet. Yeah. Oh, are you not familiar with this? Are you not familiar with the story behind the armed business jet? There's actually a story here. I have to go look at it real quickly to confirm what it was, but there's an actual story here. So, a pretty famous incident in the 80s. There's a pretty famous incident in the 80s called the USS Stark incident. It's called the USS Stark incident, and it involved a business jet. The Iraqis had taken a business jet and put a pair of Exocet anti-ship missiles on its wings, like you can see here. The Perry's crew saw this thing and identified it as a business jet. They thought, oh, it's not a threat. It won't be that much. It's unarmed. The most it's going to be able to do is tell us to fuck off, right? So they just kept sailing as normal. They requested that the aircraft identify itself. Pilot didn't respond. And then they get the warning that a fire control radar was locking on. They had picked up a fire control radar from the business jet. They had picked up a fire control radar from the business jet, an aircraft which nobody suspected would have a fire control radar on it. The jet then, by this point, this jet was very, very close to the Stark at this point, by the way. Actually, let's go get the Stark just to make things a little bit more, fitting. Oh, wait. No. This is supposed to be an armed biz jet, not the Stark. I was supposed to put the other one as the Stark, damn it. Oh! We just swapped their positions. That's fine, though. That's fine. That works out just fine. But so here we have an armed business jet coming from the Iraqi coast. This isn't actually the Iraqi coast, but this is the North African coast. But stay with me here. I know we're not in the right position because the Persian Gulf is over here. This is the Persian Gulf. This is the Mediterranean. But just stick with me here. I just don't want to move shit across the map. So you have this armed business jet. You have this business jet coming towards the Stark off the coast. The Stark has repeatedly requested that the armed business jet identify itself. It has refused to do so. They're kind of pissed off, and they're basically telling them, hey, fuck off. You're getting too close to us. The business jet then turns on its fire control radar. And the crew of the Stark is like, wait, what the fuck? Why does this have a fire control radar? But by this point, it's already too late. The business jet then launches the Exocet missiles. And now the Exocet is a very hard missile to deal with. Very, very difficult missile to deal with. And the entire reason for that is it flies very low. It's part of a class of weapons called sea skimming missiles. Basically, once it launches, it goes down to like just above the surface of the water. Let's actually see if we can get it to do this here real quickly. Turn on the surface search radar. We're not in range yet. So let's see. Bring our altitude down to 1,000. As we're coming down. And you'll get an example of why, like I said, the Exocet is very difficult to deal with. It took a lot. In fact, the US Navy had to develop a whole new naval sensor management system specifically because sea skimming threats. You may have heard of it. It's called the Aegis Combat System. It's sort of like the big thing everybody talks about with regards to the US Navy. I don't think any of the Starks were refit with any of the Perrys were refit with new threat upgrade. In no small part because they were SM1 boats, and the cost of implementing SM2, which was going to be the primary Aegis and new threat upgrade missile going forwards, was just kind of prohibitive considering the time period. We kind of come to regret getting rid of the Perrys later on down the line, but that's outside the scope of this current thing. We'll get to that in a bit. Okay, so are we in range yet? No, we're not, but we can turn to engage. I know this is coming now, so I can try to shoot down the missiles, which is a better situation than the crew of the Stark were in. This armed business jet took them completely by surprise. They had no idea what was going on here, and they were not on a combat ready. They were not at a sufficient combat readiness level to deal with what was coming their way. Remember, the Exocet in the 80s was a very new weapon. The Exocet and the Harpoon were still fairly new weapons at this point. Sea skimming anti-ship missiles were kind of a novel concept. And as a result, they didn't quite have, the countermeasures against them hadn't quite yet been developed. Let's see. Are we in range to actually engage that? No. Okay. What is the range on that? We're not even close to being able to do this yet. Also, Harpoon was originally designed with a maneuver that made it worse. It's kind of a famous maneuver. It's kind of like the famous Harpoon gimmick, but actually it made the Harpoon worse at being an anti-ship missile. I think it was a legacy of the Harpoon originally being intended to deal with surfaced submarines, but when it was left over as we're going to use this against surface ships, it made the Harpoon worse at engaging surface ships. So let's actually see how the Exocet flies. Actually, yeah, this is perfect. 16 feet above the water. 16 feet above the water. Let's try and engage this now. So we've got an inbound. It's going to have to get really close before we can engage it, though. But we can start the engagement. We're not close enough to launch yet, but we can start the engagement. Also, we're going to move this over here for the other thing later. But so notice how low this is flying. Less than 15 feet above the water. You're an adult, you can do the metric conversion if you need to. Point is, it's flying very low. It's flying incredibly low, and this is very hard to detect. This is very hard to detect because of what's called the radar horizon. So think of a radar as a lighthouse, right? Think of a radar as a lighthouse putting a beam out into the air. Well, the lighthouse putting a beam. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna do something here. I'm gonna do something here that I haven't done in a while. Yeah. Okay, so we've got paint open, right? And now I'm going to talk about the radar horizon. Now I'm going to talk about the radar horizon. So brush, size, thickest line, just to make things more visible. So this is your radar right here, right? Like I said, think of it as a lighthouse. A good radar. It's a pretty good radar, I'd say for myself. Right? And it's putting out a beam like so. Well, the problem is, despite the insistences of some people, the Earth is not flat. The Earth is not flat, as much as some people insist it is. This is exaggerated, but that's the curvature of the Earth. Now, let's say you have something that's flying. You have something that's flying very low. You're going to run into some really interesting phenomena here. Where is a different color? Let's go with red for this. So that's the Earth. This is the radar. This is our hypothetical radar. And this is our income. These are our incoming targets. Our incoming contacts. Or not even contacts, but incomings. This one, flying up high here, the radar can see it because it's not blocked by the curvature of the Earth. On the other hand, this one right here, because of the curvature of the Earth, the radar cannot see this one because it's flying very low. And by the time it gets to a place where the radar might theoretically be able to see it, it's only going to spend a very short time in there, and the radar has to sort it out versus ground clutter. Stuff versus the surface of the ocean or the ground, and especially if it's on the ground, any objects that might be lying around. Like, it's easier on the ocean because it's relatively featureless, but you still have to deal with the fact that the radar is going to be seeing shit like the tops of waves and such, right? It's going to be seeing a bunch of this shit. They're exaggerated for illustration purposes. It's like phone overcast. Wait, what do you mean phone overcast, Parasitus? There's ways you can get around this. There's ways you can get around this, but you will always have to deal with this problem to some extent. One of the easiest is actually something we can see on most ships, actually. One of the easy ways to get around the problem of the radar horizon, or at least one of the easy ways you can reduce the effect of the radar horizon is something you can see right here. Put the radar on top of a very tall thing. That way, it can see out further before the radar horizon before the curvature of the Earth starts to get in the way. The logical conclusion of this, by the way, this has an ultimate logical conclusion because you're fundamentally limited on how tall you can make the radar, the thing that you can make the the stick, basically. Put the radar on a long stick and stick it up in the air. That's the idea here, right? You're kind of fundamentally limited on this because eventually you're going to make a stick that's so long that it breaks. But the idea is pretty straightforward. The logical conclusion of this is put the radar on an airplane, have the airplane fly up, and then the radar on the airplane can look down and see shit that even the tallest radar on the boat can't see. It's one of the common solutions to dealing with the radar horizon. Another thing you can also do is use some advanced trickery to make the radar better. Oh, you know your phone isn't connected to the closest tower because you're too close to the tower. It's broadcasting over your house and yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's exactly like that. The radar horizon is a very similar idea. And that's one of the reasons why these missiles fly very low. This missile flies very low to take advantage of that exact phenomenon we're talking about. This is one of a couple of ways that you can do this. Now, there are some sacrifices that have to be made to fly this low. Well, that's sacrifice. There's some trade-offs that come with flying this low. The big one being that your missile has a speed limit. Actually, I was just saying this. That for a missile of a given size, so let's just say the size of the missile as it is here, right? For the size of this missile, you either have to make the missile subsonic, or it has to have a very short range for its size. In the case of the Exocet, they chose to make it subsonic. They figured that it's coming in super low, and a lot of work there's a lot of work that goes into actually making the missile. It doesn't look like it, and it's less pronounced on the Exocet compared to other missiles, but there's actually a lot of work that goes into making sea-skimming missiles look small and making them small and hard to detect on radar. I think the most famous example, the most interesting example of this that a lot of people don't realize is the Tomahawk. Tomahawks have a lot of radar cross-section reduction going on in their design, especially the newer versions of them. The newer blocks of Tomahawk actually have a lot of work that goes into reducing their radar cross-section to make them harder to spot on radar. But also, you can see here, because of how low the target is flying, we also can't engage it from very far away. We have to wait for this missile to get really damn close before we can actually engage it. Yep, exactly, Parasitus. You either have to go up, or go further out from the tower. Otherwise, it's going to be connecting to a different tower. You see right there? I mentioned before how clutter. Oh, by the way, thanks for the follow, Nomad. I'd mentioned the clutter, right? And I'd mentioned how the surface clutter messes with the radar. You just saw that in action right now. The SM-1 relies on the boat's radar to see its target. But because the Exocet is flying very low, the illumination from the boat's radar means that what the missile sees is not very clear. And so it has a hard time actually going for the correct target instead of kind of going off and maybe hitting a wave or similar. We got it though. We got it. So it doesn't really matter anymore. Now, let's grab the Kirov again, because I was going to actually look at something. Anyways, so let's go grab the Kirov because I want to check this out, actually. I want to see where the fucking S300 launchers are on this thing. Oh, they're in front of the... That's what I was wondering. They're in front of the P700 launcher. So these are the S300s. That's what I was wondering. It's like, where the fuck are the S300s on this boat? I have since found them. My question has been answered. Okay. So I know where the S300 launchers on the Kirov are now. I was kind of wondering that. By the way, S300 sucks at dealing with low altitude threats, which is why Kirov has all of these secondary weapon systems. The 9K33s, and that's why Kirov has the 9K33s. The 9K33s are intended to deal with stuff that gets too close to the Kirov and not to the Kirov, a lot of Soviet ships have this setup. Well, they'll have a weapon, they'll have a main weapon system like S300 or Book or so on, right? They'll have this main weapon system, and then they'll have a close-in launch system to deal with things that main weapon system can't engage. And this isn't a uniquely Soviet thing, but what is very distinctively Soviet is that to this day, they still use separate launchers for those. So, just an example, right? Let's go grab another ship. The Kid class, I think, will actually be the best one to describe this with. Where's the Kid class? Where's the fucking Kid class at? It's under Destroyer, probably. Kid class. Is it here? No. Wait. That's the Gearings. Kashin, Kanin, Udaloy, Spruance. Oh, there they are. Kid class. So the Kid class has 2 launchers here, right? It has 2 launchers for the standard missile system. Now, the standard missile system is roughly equivalent to the Soviet naval S-300, especially at this point in time. Especially if we use this version of the Kid, the new threat upgrade Kid, which has the SM-2s. This is a roughly equivalent weapon system to the S-300. But notice how the SM-2 launchers don't, along with the, notice how the Kid only has the SM-2 launchers. This is for 2 reasons. One is it's a smaller ship. And you can't fit additional weapon systems on there. But the other is that SM-2 is a more capable system than S-300 when it comes to engaging small, low-flying targets. It does that better than S-300F. Now, more modern and larger ships like the... Let's go grab the Ticonderoga. Does this one have it? No, it doesn't. But then again, that's probably something that'll show up later. This has SM-2 MR Block 2, so it's still just SM-2. I'm trying to find a ship that has another weapon system on it. That's why I'm doing this. That's why I'm poking around. I'm looking for a ship that has another weapon system on it that is a closer in missiles launcher. Okay, here we go. This right here, you see this launcher right here? This is for Sea Sparrow. Sea Sparrow is analogous to the 4K33 launchers on the Kirov, the Slava, the Udaloy, etc. The secondary SAM system alongside the S-300s, basically, the ASA system. This is roughly comparable to the ASA system. And you'll notice, this ship doesn't have any standard missiles on it. That's the entire reason it has this. The idea is this ship operates with the other ships that have the standard missile. So you would have the Spruance class, and then you would have a Ticonderoga or a Virginia. You would have a Ticonderoga or a Virginia class, and then that would be accompanied by a Spruance class or two. So the Spruance class is about 8,000 tons. Let's go check the Virginia class again. The Virginia class is about 11,000 tons. So it's 11,000 tons for the Virginia class and about 8,000 for the Spruance class. That's less tonnage than the Kirov still, but it's more hulls. And so that's sort of a trade-off that comes from a difference in philosophy. But that wouldn't last. That wouldn't last once the Mark 41 vertical launch system came into service. Which, it's not currently set up correctly, which is why it's like this. But this right here, the Ticonderoga class, it has the standard missiles like this, right? But then in the same launch system, this is the key part. So remember, the Kirov had separate launchers for its S-300s and its 9K-33s. Two distinct separate launch systems, whereas the Ticonderoga and other current Western, not just American, European ships do this as well. They have a unified launching system where you have the vertical launch system, and the vertical launch system carries long-range SAMs, such as standard Aster 30, or I'm trying to think there's another one I'm trying to think of. Yeah, basically, American, European, and Chinese warships have this sort of standardized system where you have a vertical launcher that carries all of the different types of surface-to-air missiles, as well as many of the surface-to-surface missiles. Instead of having distinct separate launchers for each weapon system, they're all designed to fit inside this standard vertical launch system. And that means that this hull is a lot more efficient than its Russian counterpart. It can carry a lot of the same weapon systems in less space. It needs less tonnage and less space to carry a similar number of weapons. Now, those weapons aren't necessarily all equivalent. For example, the Ticonderoga isn't carrying anything remotely similar to the P700 Granite. It could, however, for example, carry the Tomahawk anti-ship missile, which takes a different approach to achieve the same goal. So the P700 Granite is, again, remember how I said before about sea skimming and anti-ship missiles in general? Well, the thing about anti-ship missiles is there's multiple ways to skin a cat. There's multiple approaches to achieve a desired solution. And the difference between P700, Ka-22, Tomahawk, between weapons like P700 or Ka-22, actually no, because P700 is weird. We'll get to P700 in a bit. But for example, you have P700, you have Ka-22 and Tomahawk. Let's just use these as our two examples right quick. We're going to swap this out for a Tu-22M to actually kind of emphasize that. So we go bomber, Tu-22M2, swap. This is the Ka-22. And the one we want. We want this Ticonderoga, the Mark 26 boats. It's currently under emission control But once we have distance, we'll start firing everything else up. Do that so that it's not like obnoxiously loud. Accelerate the time out to 100. And then let's see if we've got enough distance to make this work. Oh, we're actually outside maximum now. Interesting. So now we'll also fire up the air search radar on the Ticonderoga. Which, by the way, there's a lot of different radars going on here that are worth talking about, actually. A lot of different radars here that are worth going on and talking about, because they all do different things. So, to make this easier, we're going to pull this up. That one that you see spinning back there, that's the SPS-49. SPS-49 is a very long-range volume search 2D radar. Basically, what SPS-49 does is it tells you it's this far away in that direction. Once you have that information, then this radar right here takes over, and Spy 1. I'm very much simplifying things. Let's get that out of the way right now. I'm going to say a lot of stuff that people who actually know what they're talking about would probably get kind of pissed off by, because it's technically wrong. But it's close enough for our purposes. So this is the AN Spy 1. The AN Spy 1 is one of the primary components of the famous Aegis combat system, and is very different from a lot of the other radars we've looked at so far. So you notice how this radar spins? Right? I actually have a really good demonstration of the difference in how these two radars work. Let me go grab it. Because you remember, I made that comparison to a lighthouse before, right? How a radar is a bit like a lighthouse. Well, I'm about to completely break that comparison to describe how electronically scanned radars work. Now, this comparison is for a more advanced type of electronically scanned radar called an actively electronically scanned radar, an ASA. Whereas what the Ticonderoga has is a passively electronically scanned array, a PISA. But the concept is close enough that it still works for our purposes. This is the radar scan pattern for the two different types of radar. You can think of the one on the left as the SPS-49 and the one on the right as the Spy 1. And this is sort of the difference in how the two radars work. You have a bunch of these tiny little radar beams going just absolutely fucking nuts. Like brrr, 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 brrr. System can. And so you have this like really rapid scan pattern going on that is harder for people on the receiving end to detect and updates faster than a mechanically scanned radar like the SPS-49 here could do. There's a lot of advantages to an electronically scanned radar. Now, they're not perfect, which is why not every radar is electronically scanned. In particular, I think they have problems with, the big one is cost. They're more expensive than the mechanically scanned counterparts. And in a lot of cases, you don't really need the rapid scan capability of an electronically scanned radar. But when you do, you put one where you can. Actually, I just realized there's a boat that's not in this game that I hope gets added really soon. That is a great demonstrator. That is actually not a great demonstrator. That is one of the earliest examples of an electronically scanned array. And I love it because I gotta show you this thing now. I'm talking about electronically scanned radars. I gotta show y'all this thing now. I don't know how many of y'all are familiar with it, but I'm talking about this, so now I gotta show this to y'all. The first American warships to be equipped with an electronically scanned radar were the USS Enterprise and the USS Long Beach. Specifically, USS Enterprise CVN-65. It had the Scanfar radar, I think it was called. I think that was the name of it. Yeah, Scanfar. This was the name of it. Now, the one on Enterprise it doesn't look all that crazy. But the one I really want to show you is Long Beach. Because Long Beach looks crazy. Long Beach looks absolutely crazy with its radar system. So we pull this up real quickly. You see that right there? You see how this looks like a cube? That is the Scanfar radar system of the USS Long Beach. And for the longest time, every time I saw this thing, I couldn't help but just constantly call it USS Borg Cube because of just how big and how prominent this thing was. It's one of the two nicknames I've kind of had for this thing for a very long time. One is USS Borg Cube, and the other one is also related to its design. Specifically, though, the fact that it was the last American cruiser to be built on a true cruiser hull rather than a modified destroyer hull. Let me just show you what that looks like visually so you can understand. That right there, that's what it means. This is what I mean when I say a cruiser hull rather than a destroyer hull. And so as a result, I sometimes tend to call this thing the USS Long Bitch. Because it's a long bitch. It's a long-ass boat. And compare that to the Ticonderoga. Ticonderoga is built on a destroyer hull. An enlarged destroyer hull, but a destroyer hull nonetheless, as opposed to the cruiser hull of the Long Beach or the Galveston. The Galveston is in-game, by the way, so I can actually show you that one, too, in a bit. Let's see. Bomber is currently performing its ingress. We have air search on. And once they launch, we'll be able to actually start the engagement. The Ticonderoga has a noticeable advantage here that it knows what's coming. This is basically a live exercise scenario, if you will, which is incredibly stupid, by the way. But this isn't real life, so we can get away with shit like this. This is basically an exercise scenario with the fact that the Ticonderoga knows that the bomber is heading its way and that it's going to launch a missile that it's then going to try and shoot down. But it's mostly, I'm doing this just to show you what I mean when I say there's more than one way to skin a cat. This missile right here, the KH-22, or the H-22 if you really want to get into it, is what's called an aeroballistic missile, or is either an aeroballistic or a quasi-ballistic missile. You'll notice why I say that. You'll notice why it's called that when you see how it flies. Basically, it goes really high up in the air and then comes almost as close to straight down on its target as possible. How much longer do we have to go until we're in launch range? It's gonna be a little while. Okay. So let's pull that up real quickly so that we know when we're going to be in launch range. And then we can go from there. And the lines are aligning. Shouldn't take very long from here, actually. Okay, okay, we're coming in range. And we are in range. Missile is away. Now let's watch what the missile does. So right now, it's doing that exact maneuver I was talking about, where it pulls up into the air and tries to go high. It tries to go high, and the reason it's trying to go high is that the higher you go, the faster you can go, because air is less dense. The missile is using its boost energy right now to get up high, and then it's going to come down on its target. I don't remember how fast this thing actually gets to. Is 2,000 knots as fast as it goes? I forget. Anyways, flies at about 60,000 feet, which is also part of why I call it a quasi-ballistic missile, because it's not following a straight ballistic trajectory where it would go up, 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 and then come down. Now it goes up, 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 flattens its trajectory, flies at high altitude, at high speed, and then comes down. It's an aeroballistic missile because it never leaves the atmosphere. I'm trying to remember, actually, does this missile have any sort of unusual, any additional sustainer propulsion? I forget. Let's go look. It has... It's just a liquid fuel rocket. Okay. That's what I was trying to remember. It's just a liquid fuel rocket. Missile cruiser. Let's grab the Slavas, actually. I want to see if these are able to reach out that far. They are! Good! That's useful. Can the Ticonderoga reach the no? So we'll probably swap it out for the VLS Ticonderoga to demonstrate the differences between some missile philosophies here. Because both of the missiles that we're going to be seeing in this demonstration fly fairly low, but they take different approaches to trying to get to their targets. Aurora, thanks for the raid! How are you doing today? What were you up to, actually? That's the real question. Let me make sure I spell your name right, because I always struggle with that. Ah, AC6. What were you doing in AC6? Was it PvP or... I'm guessing that's probably what it was. Was it PvP? Were you doing ranked? I know I'm not the biggest fan of vanilla AC6 PvP. I mean, I was one of the early people that I was one of the people who jumped into AC6 modding early on and basically never looked back. But I'm guessing that's what y'all were doing. Y'all were doing ranked PvP in AC6. How'd that go for you? Okay, Sam's are away. Their way to engage, though. And this is also actually a really great demonstration of why. This is a great demonstration of why this sort of missile right here isn't as good as it used to be. Because because a lot of development work was put into engaging this exact sort of threat, where this no longer works very well on its own. Actually, very few anti-ship missiles work very well on their own in single shots like this. This is really just a demonstration shot to show their principle of operation. You're typically going to need a lot of missiles to saturate a target's defenses, along with everything else, where you're taking advantage of high speed, low altitude, or either high speed, high speed. You're taking advantage of some combination of high speed, low altitude, or low observability. You're going to need, even with those, you're going to need a lot of shots to actually hit your target. So anyways, as I was saying, I'm going to go grab... Oh, is this the MRU version? Is this the MRU version? Yes, it is. I want the... Actually, yeah, let's use the MRU version. Why not? Ticonderoga. Let's grab the VLS version. Let's see. Do we want... Oh, shit. We can actually talk about the secondary missiles after all, because the 2003 version of the Ticonderoga has them. So we'll come back around to that in a bit. First, though, we're going to have these two ships launch against each other. And use them to demonstrate two sort of concepts here. So this is the Tomahawk anti-ship missile. This is the P-1000 Vulcan. And as you can see, they are taking very, very different attack profiles to reach their target. The P-1000 Vulcan goes up to altitude and flies very fast, and then it only comes down. It's called a high-high-low. It's called a low-high-low profile. The intermediate cruise stage happens at very high altitude, and then the missile goes down in the last part of its flight to get under its target's radar. The Tomahawk, on the other hand, is using what's called a low-low-low profile. It always flies at wave-top level. It always flies at wave-top level, which means that it takes longer to detect, but it also has to fly slower, which means it takes longer to get to its target. And this is sort of the difference in philosophy. The low-high-low profile, you can fly faster, which means your target has less time to react to the missile being launched, to the missile overall. Say, they have less time to react to the missile overall, but because it gets detected earlier, they have more time to react once the missile gets into their engagement range. Which also means you detect the missile earlier, but once it's in your engagement range, you have less time to react. Versus, let's make this something, you detect these two missiles at the exact same range, right? So let's say that just arbitrarily, let's say you detect both of these missiles once they're 50 miles away from you. By the time you detect if that's when you detect I hate this. I hate this. I hate when it does this, especially when I'm in the middle of explaining something. Yeah, no, don't worry about it. Yeah, no, thanks. I'm back. Okay, good. Thanks for letting me know. What was I saying? Oh, yeah. Point is, you will detect this missile first, but you'll have less time. But yeah, no, if you need to go get some sleep, you need to go get something to eat, you go do that, Aurora. You go do that. You go do that, because obviously, I mean, you probably had a long-ass stream with whatever you were doing, and you said you probably need to like, get some food, get some sleep, whatever. So you go do that. Oh, you're in bed? Okay. Not really, just 2 hours. Okay. So, okay, actually not that. Okay, that isn't very long. You're right. But anyways, what was I saying? Oh, yeah. You'll detect this missile first, but once it's close enough for you to actually do something about it, you have less time. On the other hand, you have less time to do something about it. On the other hand, it'll take longer to detect this missile. But once you do, you have more time to do something about it. Problem is, but that's the trade-off. That's the trade-off. You'll have less preparation, which means it'll take you longer to do something about it. What is it you want to show me? What is it you want to show me, Aurora? Actually, you know what? Throw it in the Discord. Throw it in the Discord and I'll look at it later. By the way, if you want to see what I'm up to off stream, everybody, you can find me in all these wonderful places. I used to have Gilded on here because that was something I was experimenting with. In my DMs. Okay. I was experimenting with, but I haven't done that in a while. But yeah, if you want to see what I'm up to off stream, you can find me on all these places. Mostly Discord and Blue Sky. I'm only really technically still on Twitter just because I kind of don't like Twitter. Blue Sky, I like how Blue Sky feels a lot better. So yeah, mostly gonna find me, if you mostly want to see what I'm off stream, mostly find me on Blue Sky and Twitter. On Blue Sky and Discord, I mean, not Twitter. The description is, okay, what's this? What's the, oh, that's very nice. That's a very good color too. That's a very good color, Aurora. I'm guessing you saw that in person? Oh, no, okay. That's very nice, though. I like that color. I see what's going on here. That's not an Exige. That's not a Lotus. It's not a Venom, though. I can tell you that much right. That's not a Venom GT. That's a Lotus that somebody stuck a Hennessy V8 into. Oh, wait, no, is that? No, it's not. Oh, it's a Hemi-swapped Lotus. God damn. For a second, I thought it was a little bit even crazier than that. And that they had actually stuck an honest-to-God Hennessy V8 into Hennessy tuned V8 into a Lotus Exige, which, I mean, yeah, that's basically a ghetto Venom GT. It still kind of is a ghetto Venom GT, just not in the exact same way. Just realized this one doesn't have its air search radar on. Let's turn that on because it's going to need that for the engagement. But you'll notice as well, because the Ticonderoga saw the P1000 coming. Yeah, I know. I know how Hennessy has like a bit of a reputation. I'm not going to get into that because it's a long and complicated subject, and honestly, it kind of goes two ways. But I know what you mean. You don't want to deal with the whole, everything surrounding Hennessy's reputation, because they do have a bit of a have a reputation for some issues. I'm very aware of that. You don't have to tell me about that. But yeah, you notice how the Tomahawk, it's taking longer to get there. It's flying a lot slower. It's flying at like, I mean, it's not ground launched. It came off of a boat. It's a but yeah, no, it's a Tomahawk cruise missile. And the reason I'm doing this, by the way, wait, what? What's going on, Aurora? Wait, what? Oh, the reason is to demonstrate the reason I'm doing this is I'm demonstrating how different types of anti-ship missiles approach the same problem. So these two ships, I chose these two ships because they have two very different weapon systems. This one has the P1000 Vulcan. This one has the Tomahawk anti-ship missile. And the reason I chose these two is to show how they are different from each other. So I had them launch at each other. I had them launch one missile at each other to demonstrate how these two different weapon systems behave. Basically, it's just a demonstration of how the weapon actually works. And I was talking about how the P1000, this one's flying at 550. This one, when it was in the air, was flying at 2000. And what I was talking about though is how this one flies a lot lower. And because it's flying slower, it doesn't have to be nearly as big as this one does. Because this one is flying very fast and in the last stage of its flight, very low, it has to be a huge missile to hold enough fuel to fly that way. On the other hand, because this one is a lot slower, it can be a lot smaller. Now, this doesn't mean come on. There we go. Okay, we're back now. We're back now. We're back now. Okay, so what I was talking about is how the missile from this one flies a lot faster, and for most of its flight path, for most of its trajectory, flies. Yeah, it does this. It's just been doing this for a while. And the problem is it's not consistent. That's the big problem, is it's not consistent where I can really troubleshoot it very easily. It's very intermittent. And I don't know what causes it. But what was I saying though? Oh yeah. So the missile this one launches, for most of its trajectory, flies higher so that it can fly faster without using a ton of fuel. But when it gets close to its target, it drops down. The result of this is that its target can detect it earlier, but often it can detect it earlier, often too far away to actually do anything about it. So let's actually see. So we're going at 550 knots. Where's our ruler at? It's about 100 miles, 100 nautical miles. 550 knots, 100 nautical miles. It's about 12 seconds. No, 12 minutes. About 12 minutes. We can speed that up, though. We can speed that up. So now it'll be about 2 minutes. But the thing is, right now, this boat cannot detect this missile because it's under the radar horizon. It's under the radar horizon because it's flying so low. So this boat probably can't detect this missile right now. It's flying too low for it to detect it. It doesn't know where it is. So it doesn't know it's here yet. It doesn't know the missile is here. This is sort of the trade-off. No, it's because of the problem here is physics. So the problem here is physics. Basically, let me pull up the diagram I made earlier. I'm gonna pull up the diagram I made earlier so you can see what I'm talking about here. So you see that. So this is your radar, right? This is your radar. This is the Earth. Notice how the Earth is not flat. Well, this one is higher up. The radar can see this one. This one, because it's much lower, the radar can't see over the curvature of the Earth to actually see where it is. And even once it can, because it's flying so low, it's hard to spot it against the tops of waves. I mean, this is how sea skimming works. I don't know the exact distance. But this is the idea. This is basically the idea, is that the radar can't see it until it gets very close. And even then, once it can see it, it's going to have a hard time spotting it against the tops of waves, or if it was flying over the ground, shit like trees. Basically, this missile takes advantage of some physics to make it harder to detect, whereas the other missile is like, fine, you can detect me, but by the time I'm close enough for you to actually do something about me, you have less time to react. It's two, like I said, it's the same problem, but two different solutions. This missile will probably get shot down, by the way. I'm just going to say it right now. This missile will probably get intercepted because it's just one missile, and the target boat knows that it's coming. It doesn't know where it is, but it knows that it's coming. This is not like an actual fight. This is sort of like this is basically a demonstration scenario. All right, so we speed things up to about 10 times. We have the missile flying in on target. It's doing a little search wiggle right now with its radar turned on to find it. Once it does, it'll probably stop doing the snaking maneuver. This may also be an evasive maneuver now that I'm thinking about it. Point is, though, once it actually finds its target, we'll probably see its behavior change. We'll tell it to go ahead and start the engagement, even though it'll probably struggle. All right, so it is going to be moving, which is going to shorten our approach time. That's fine, though. Okay, so here we go. All right, missiles are away. Notice how this missile got a lot closer, though, before the got a lot closer to the boat before the engagement started. This means it has less distance. It has to close less distance during the engagement. This is sort of the trade-off. This one is going slower, but it has to cross less distance. The other one is going faster, but it has to cross more distance. There we go. Successful interception. Kind of what I figured would happen. I figured that would happen because it was just one missile. It was one missile that was kind of on a predictable launch trajectory, and the incoming and the target knew it was coming. This was just a demonstration, not an actual combat scenario. So now let's take this into an actual combat scenario, and we might actually get to see how these two different approaches work. Let's see here. Let's do Volga exercise isn't really good for it. All your Guam are belong to us might actually work here very well. Yeah, let's do all your Guam are belong to us, because this actually has two different this actually has ships with the two different weapon systems we're talking about going on here. The two different approaches to sending a missile to go blow up a ship. Let's see if the game doesn't crash as well, because I am running a decent number of mods, and that might make things act weird here. Oh, game crashed! Ha! Game crashed! Oh boy, that's kind of what I expected, though. That's kind of what I expected. Like I said, there's a lot of stuff going on here with mods that might be an issue. Yeah, it's because I have a lot of mods going on, Slep. That's why. It's what happens when you start throwing a lot of mods around. Things get unstable. Especially if a game is in a relatively early development state, which Sea Power absolutely is. Absolutely is in a somewhat early development state. But not being very stable is honestly kind of good it's kind of not good. It's kind of similar to the streams overall, man. I really wish I knew what was going on with that. I really do wish I knew what was going on with that. Like I said, the problem is that it's not consistent. It's intermittent, so I can't really troubleshoot it all that well. Let's see here. What are you? Project 61, Project 1134U. Let's do this one. Let's do this one because it might actually give us an idea of how this will work out. Again, assuming it doesn't crash. It shouldn't, though, because this is actually set up to work with the mods we have installed. Yep, there we go. So we have P700s on this boat, right? We'll use you and have you move in to identify our target. This is almost certainly our Ticonderoga that we're looking for. Yes, you actually would launch a large number of them. You actually wouldn't launch just one missile. You almost never launch just one missile, Aurora. That was purely for demonstration purposes. Normally, you would launch a bunch of them all at once so that even if your target shoots down a few of them, at least one of them will hit, preferably more. So let's check the range on the P700s. Okay, we're in range. So like here, for example, we're going to launch off a 4-shot salvo of these. Tubes open. Tube 1, tube 3. And then I kind of want to follow this missile out if I can. Because I also want to show you how the booster and this little cap drop off. They'll be doing the same thing as well. They'll be launching probably, I don't know how many of them they've got, probably 8. If I had to guess. No, they're probably not launching I don't know if they have tomahawks. If they do, if they don't, they definitely have harpoons, and harpoons work the same way. We've got contacts. Yep, harpoons inbound. Ah, they came from a different direction. They came from a different direction. Okay. Let's set air defense to weapons free and start the engagement. That E2 is outside of our weapons range, so we're not going to be able to shoot that down. They probably won't be able to do the same with our Tu-95 RT, though, so never mind. I made a big mistake and flew it too close to the target. It doesn't matter, though, because our missiles are already outbound. It's done its job. Our missiles are already outbound. It's already done its job, so I don't really care at this point. Let's see. Actually, what are these doing right now? Are they all high? Yeah, they're all currently in the high phase of their flight. So right now, these missiles are at about 8,000 feet, right? They're flying. They're probably going to be flying in a low, high, low pattern. Starting from the ground, they go up, and during the this is the intermediate cruise phase of their flight, where they'll fly up high, and then once they get close to their target, they'll go down low for the last bit of the flight to make themselves harder to engage. Information. Doesn't matter. They've already launched off their missiles. They're not really much of a threat to me at this point. They've already done their shit. They're doing their evasive maneuvers, and they're headed downwards now. We're also already engaging. None of ours made it through. Let's see if any of theirs make it through. Oh, we're using the Kinjals actually here as our secondaries, not Asa. So these might actually have a better chance of intercepting the inbounds. Although maybe, nope, there we go. That's one down. That's two. Can we get the last one? Come on. Come on. Yeah, we got the last one. Okay. So we managed to intercept all of their shots. We managed to intercept all of their shots. They managed to intercept all of ours. But you'll notice how we didn't see their missiles until they were very, very close, where they saw our missiles from further out, but ours were flying faster. So once they started doing something, they had to do it quicker. That's the trade-off. Their missiles had less distance to cross. Our missiles had to cross that distance in less time. All right, let's just take care of these fucking things before they try and get any ideas. I don't know what these are necessarily, but I don't want them sticking around. One down. Yeah, keep the engagement going. Ah, it's the A6s. Oh, they got bombs off. They got bombs off. Yep, the aircraft had bombs on them, and that's actually what got through. Okay, damage control. They're already taking care of the big problems. Well, never mind. Secondary explosions. Oh boy. But this is just an example of how things can go. This is just an example of how these things go very differently. How the fuck is that a decisive victory? We lost all of our shit and we only took out their aircraft. I mean, I guess I'll take it, but that's not a decisive victory. We didn't hit their ship at all. I don't get it. Oh well, doesn't matter. Point is, that shows the difference between ways that weapons actually work. So now let's actually get into some other actual scenarios that might be interesting. Ooh, I've been trying to do this one recently. It is an alternative history Cuban Missile Crisis scenario where what if both sides were more aggressive in trying to either enforce the quarantine or enforce the blockade or break the blockade. So we're playing as Task Force 22, a US Navy unit responsible for enforcing the naval blockade of Cuba. Along with that, we're dealing with a bunch of Soviet ships that are trying to run that blockade. But not everything that's here is a Soviet ship, which is also why we have this here. Because this will give us a much better opportunity to actually identify shit. Our surface search is on. Their surface search and air search is on as well. Okay. This one is not responding. We don't have a positive ID on it, though, and we don't want to accidentally sink any neutral merchant ships. The only ones we want to start doing anything to are Soviet vessels. So let's try and run these IDs, see if we can get anything. We'll continue trying to request this vessel to identify itself. They're likely going to be they're likely Soviet, though, which means they're not going to respond. Meanwhile, let's see if the power has picked up anything. Nothing yet. P3 is still a fair distance out. Let's bring it in closer, and let's see if between now and then we also get any more information on what this might be. We know, for example, that there are Soviet blockade runners inbound, and they have escort, mostly consisting of the Kashin class destroyer Chelyabinsk, I think is the name of it. Forget if the liner. Sorry, I forget if it's the blockade runner that's named Chelyabinsk or the. It might be actually that. It might actually be that. That it's the blockade runners named Chelyabinsk. It doesn't really matter. Point is, these guys have a surface escort. We know from our briefing, these guys will have a surface escort from Soviet destroyers. I don't know how many. I don't remember how many. I know there's going to be at least one, though. So we're going to be trying and stay aware of that. Try and stay aware of the Soviet surface escorts that are going to be coming in, accompanying these blockade runners. Accompanying their blockade runners. Let's see. Are they going to comply at all? No, they are not responding to requests for identification. We can probably start to assume that these are probably Soviet, but we don't know for sure. You see here, the Kashin class is a Soviet destroyer. This could be a Soviet destroyer. It could be, but it could also be a merchant ship. It's almost certainly not a British Type 23 now. I'll tell you this, it's almost certainly not a British Type 23, but it could be a merchant ship. That's the thing we don't know. This could be a neutral merchant ship. It could be a Soviet merchant ship. The only merchant ships we're currently authorized to open fire on are Soviet ones. So we need a positive ID on this contact. We don't know what this is, and we don't know who it belongs to. So we need to get some kind of positive ID on it. We could have, actually, we're going to do that. We're going to have the aircraft come down. We're going to have the patrol plane come down and actually try and get a visual on that, see if we can get information from that. Also, continue the request for identification, which I doubt they're going to comply with, but hey, it's worth a shot. Let's see, information, still no new information on that. There's also 21 other things it could possibly be that we're not. So that also means we can start engaging it. We know this is a Soviet blockade runner. We can start the engagement. We're going to use a single shot on this because we probably don't need much in the way of more. Let's see. Are we in gun range yet? Not on either of these. Okay, we're not in gun range yet. So we're going to be using the Talos missile in its secondary anti-surface mode to get rid of this fella. By the way, that's another thing that is not unique to, but it's somewhat distinctive with American naval surface-to-air missiles. Most of them are set up so that along with being a surface-to-air missile, they can be fired in an anti-surface role against other ships. What you're seeing right here. Basically, it works like a really short-range ballistic missile, where it does a bit of terminal guidance, but for the most part, it's flying ballistically. It's got a ramjet sustainer. Point is, though, it's a very short-range weapon because this is not its primary role, but it is designed to be able to do this. It's just most of the time you're not going to be close enough to do this. All right. That's one blockade runner damaged. Let's see. Are we in gun range to finish it off? Not yet. So we'll use the Taloses to cripple them. And then from there, we'll finish them off with guns and torpedoes. Well, not torpedoes. We don't have any anti-surface torpedoes. but we'll finish them off with guns from there if they need it. This one's probably dead in the water completely, though, and it'll probably be going down soon enough. Rosa. Yeah, the Rosa Luxembourg. Let's see. Anything on the power scopes yet? No. Okay. P3 is coming in on course still. Let's go back to TU-22 and let's see. Is the Brownson in gun range yet? Not yet. Okay. What is the status on the Rosa Luxembourg? She's still burning, and she's lost propulsion, it looks like. Yeah, she's still burning, and she's lost propulsion. She'll probably be going down quickly enough, but we might as well accelerate the process so that we don't have to worry about her. Okay, Brownson, start gun engagement. What's the power doing? Nothing there. Okay. Ceasefire, ceasefire. Salvos are out. Rosa Luxembourg should be going down pretty soon. Let's see how long it takes for these to get there. 1. Hits are coming in. Hits are coming in. Okay. I know, you're thinking, that's not a hit. That hit the water. Near misses can actually do a lot of damage to ships. Believe it or not, near misses can actually do a lot of damage to ships, especially unarmored ships. And armored ships kind of stopped being a thing after World War II, so they're not really relevant anymore. Well, I say that ships haven't been heavily armored since World War II, because the idea nowadays is just to not get hit, because the shit that's being fired at you these days is so powerful that it would take an impractical amount of armor to stop them. But this is also one of those, like, a near miss can actually be quite devastating. The effects of the blast, as well as splinters, as well as like shell or missile splinters, can actually do a lot of damage, even if it's just close. Because you've basically got big flying pieces of hot metal coming out from whatever landed near you, and those are gonna go and punch holes in the side of the boat and do really nasty things to anyone or anything that's up on the deck as well. So yeah, no, near misses can be quite devastating. Regardless, though, she's going down. We don't have to worry about her anymore. Back into our search pattern for any new blockade runners. Let's head back up to 6,000. That'll give me a longer search range on the surface radar. Remember what I said before about the radar horizon? The radar horizon, you can extend the radar horizon out where it becomes less of a problem by putting the radar higher. And putting the radar on an airplane is sort of the logical conclusion of that. So what we do is we just have the airplane fly higher, and that means its radar can see further. We're going up to about 6,000. That should give the radar a decent range, as well as mean that if we need to respond directly to anything, we can descend back down and get to that lower altitude relatively quickly. That is a cool tail art, by the way. That is a really cool tail art. What is this? P3C. Do we have a squadron for it? That's the thing I'm really curious about. Ah, VP40 fighting Marlins. Well, I mean, yeah, that's a Marlin, all right. That is a Marlin. It's got the little bill. It's got that. That is a really, really cool logo, though. I love that. I miss high visibility aircraft schemes in general. Like, I get why a lot of aircraft don't have them anymore, particularly because that makes them more vulnerable to being destroyed on the ground. But there's some aircraft where either due to where they're based or what their role is, they don't need to have like the super low visibility gray scheme. Or like they don't need to have it as much. And in fact, in some cases, having a higher visibility scheme might be useful for them. It's kind of weird edge cases that don't really matter, and a high visibility scheme would cause logistical complications, but still, I really like some of the older, higher visibility color schemes that aircraft and ships used to have. Or in the case of ships, not really higher visibility, but there was another color scheme that older warships would have. I forget what it was called, but it was used. If you actually want to see an example of it, it's the way the USS Texas is painted. That old battleship, that's painted in one of the historical Navy schemes that I'm trying to remember what it was called. There's a name for this. What the hell was it called? Measure 21. Measure 21 looks really, really cool. It's very simple, too, is the thing. So Measure 21 is... Where are you? Here we are. Measure 21 is basically a very dark blue scheme that's designed to sort of fade into the water on the horizon. Now, there are some... Okay, we're back now. Okay. So I was basically just talking about paint schemes where Measure 21, the ships were painted a very dark blue, which would... The idea would be that it would fade. It would be hard to spot against the ocean. But on the other hand, because it was a very dark color, under the right circumstances, it would be very visible against the sky, which is why you don't really see it so much anymore. And we've since moved on to a light gray scheme that's mostly focused on trying to blend into the sky rather than to the ocean. Now, there's, like I said, there's arguments to be made here on the merits of either scheme. And so there's a lot of debate going on. There's a lot of people who still say that we should consider going back to Measure 21, in part because of that, but also in part because most of the time, a lot of the time, you're not so much concerned about being detected visually as you are being detected on radar or other sensors. Now, that's kind of a smaller argument because a lot of times you'll be... in combat, you might be under what's called MCON, or emissions control, where you're not going to have your radars turned on, and as a result, you're going to be relying on passive sensors such as visual identification, sonar, or picking up the other guy's radar. Things like that. Or you're going to be relying on somebody who's out further away that does have their radars turned on, but is not next to you, so that you remain hidden because you're not emitting, but they are. There's a bunch of different practices going on here. You can get really into the weeds with it. Point is, visual identification still matters because there's a lot of situations where your sensors are going to either be turned off or otherwise not relevant. And that's where, like I said, a lot of the debate comes regarding what paint scheme is actually best for a warship at sea to reduce its visual signature. The idea is either, do you want a light gray scheme that blends into the sky, or do you want a dark blue scheme that blends into the sea? And there's arguments for both. And you can kind of actually see how they're trying to split the difference here if you look at the way the ship is painted. The sides of the ship are painted a light gray to blend in with the sky, where the top of it is painted a darker color to blend into the sea. Yeah, das Boot, Emmerich. Yes, we're talking about boats. I'm talking about boats and how boats are painted to try and make them less visible from long distances. So like right now, obviously, at this distance, it wouldn't work. But imagine now for a minute, you are, let's just say, you're this far away and you don't have a God's eye view of it. Instead, you're kind of looking at it from here. You see how it's a very, very tiny silhouette on the horizon? Depending on the color and the ambient lighting conditions, you might have a very hard time seeing this. And so like painting the ship up different ways is just trying to make it harder to see. Or you might be in an airplane, right? You might be in an airplane. This one actually works really well. Because you're in an airplane looking down at it. And if you didn't know it was there, if you didn't already know it was there, it would be very hard. It would be very hard to actually see. Or even if you do see it, you might have a hard time identifying it. So it's like, you know something is there, but you don't know what it is. I swear to God. I swear to God. Oh, we're back though. We're back. I swear to God, Twitch. I swear to God, Twitch. Never ends with you. It never ends with you. I don't know what causes it, like I said before. I legitimately don't know what causes it because it's so intermittent and inconsistent. Yeah, we're back. I know we're back, Emmerich. Thanks for letting me know that the stream went down, though. Thanks for letting me know that the stream oofed. Because on OBS, it's actually kind of hard to see because it's all the way on just the bottom left corner of the window telling you that the stream oofed. Let's see. Any new contacts in the area? It doesn't look like it. Let's speed things up along, see if anything else shows up, though. That's going to be the real question. Does anything interesting show up? Hey, look, it's an airplane. Oh no, rip. You know how I feel about that. You already know how I feel about that. Every single time. I love how you're not gonna have to deal with that here. I love how every single time though you complain about being cold, somebody comes out of the goddamn walls, and they're just like, "Well, you can just put on more layers. Just put on more layers. When you're hot, you can't take off more layers. You can't take off more layers when you're hot. Just put on more layers. Just put on more layers." Like, dude, Jesus Christ, is this your religion or something? And if so, you need to find a better religion. Damn. I like the sound the airplane makes when you're close to it, though. A lot better than when you're further away. When you're further away, it just sounds like an annoying fan. But when you're close to it, it's like... It's kind of relaxing in a sense. At least from the front. From the back, it's that fan noise again. But from the front, it's kind of nice sounding. It's like... I wonder what it sounds like inside the plane. It's probably like that, but even worse. I don't know, it's probably like that, but worse because it's even louder and it's probably all around you. It might actually be kind of relaxing if you're the right kind of person. Yeah, Mongolian throat singing plane. Let's see then. We got anything? Okay, let's speed time it. Let's fast forward a little bit, see if anything else shows up. Let's go 20 times. And see if we get any. Okay, we've got a contact. Let's start the ID process. Information. It's not going to be either of these because these are far too new. Those are from like the 80s and 90s, and it's the 60s, so we can already eliminate those. Let's ask them to identify themselves. Can't communicate with them. Let's see. Okay. Agree to comply. That is a neutral merchant ship, so we're not going to engage that. This is not a blockade runner, so we can ignore them now. Let's see then. Are you the Spanish? Well, in this case, it's are you the Russians, but otherwise, yes. Otherwise, yes. Basically, that's what we're doing here. It's literally, we're telling the ships like, hey, who the fuck are you? And where'd you come from? Got another one. All right, back to the airplane. Request to identify. Another neutral merchant. It's not the Russians, so again, we can ignore them. Oh, no. Oh, no. Oh, no, it's the boxes that have the secret documents in them. They're going to leak classified information. They're going to leak classified information. What are we going to do? But also, I don't want to shoot at Kiki. I like Kiki's delivery service. I don't want to shoot at her. Pissing her off is not good. Shit. But no, really though, this is a neutral merchant. We can ignore them. We can ignore them. They're not really doing anything important. Let's see. God damn it, Emmerich. God damn it. Yeah, no, I swear to God, I saw this. I saw that just immediately. I knew what I had to do. I knew what I had to do the moment I saw that. Let's see then. Let's speed things up again, see if anything else shows up. So these we can ignore. That's basically the point. We can ignore these because they are not blockade runners. And if anything, they'll probably turn away once they realize they're approaching the quarantine zone anyways. Honestly, even if they do, they're not really my problem. They're somebody else's problem at that point. So, speed things up along, see if anything new shows up. Aircraft is moving towards its zone. No other new contacts have been picked up yet. Contacts faded away. We got a new one! Does not respond. This one probably can't communicate with it. Okay. We can assume this is likely Soviet then. Because, wait. No. We don't know what the hell this thing is. We know it's none of these. We know it's none of these because these are too new. But we don't know what it actually is. It's probably some type of merchant, but what we don't know is whether it is a neutral or a Soviet merchant. It's refusing to comply with our ID requests, so we're going to initially assume that it's likely Soviet, but we're going to identify it first. That's the key thing. We're going to identify it before we actually do anything about it. Does not respond, does not respond. These are likely Soviet blockade runners, but we don't know for sure, and that's the problem. So we can't engage yet. That's the big thing. We don't know what these are, so we can't engage them yet. We know that at least one group of Soviet blockade runners has a surface escort from our intel briefing. We don't know if this is that group though. I'm pretty sure the ones that have surface escort, the ones that have surface escort include the ship Chelyabinsk. So if we see Chelyabinsk, we know that group has a surface escort. This is still approaching. We don't have anything to go off of yet. Don't have any information to go off of yet regarding what we're dealing with. We not necessarily know what they are, but we need to know at least who they belong to. Because if they're Soviet blockade runners, obviously we're going to want to engage them. But if not, that would be a problem. That could turn into a problem very quickly. That could be a cash-in class, but we don't know for sure. Speed things along, see if we can get identification on them. Oh, we got something. All right, that's our cash-in class. Let's see. We may need to adjust the P3's course to steer clear of that. Because you'll notice the radars it has. Information. No, not information. Unit reference. Surface ships. Destroyer. Cash-in class. Not the cash-in A. Cash-in class. Cash-in class. Cash-in class. There we go. This has a SAM system on it. This has a SAM system on it, which could bring down our ASW plane. Which is also the thing, this could bring down our airplane, which is the main thing we're using to actually identify shit right now. We don't want that happening. So we're gonna have to adjust the P3's course just a bit to try and steer clear of it. We don't exactly know where it is. We know it's somewhere inside this circle, though. It's somewhere inside of this ellipse here. 7008. Identify yourself. It's another British merchant. Okay. Another British merchant. We can ignore that. SS Flinders Bay. We still don't know what these are, though. And that's the problem. So we need to get closer and start running ID on that. Yep, start that VID for me. Don't know what those are. We can't really do anything about them until we do. Oh shit, we've got more of them. This might be a blockade runner group. There's a lot of them and they're moving pretty quick. Well, quick for a merchant anyways. 11 knots. Yeah, 11 knots, 9 knots. That one's going 7. It may not be related to the blockade runners. Let's see. Does it agree to identify itself? If it does, that might help narrow things down. Nope, doesn't respond. We also know the cash-in is somewhere. So the circle where the cash-in might be is getting smaller. That's good. Let's see then. Keep things running. Let's see if any new information comes up that we need to pay attention to. We still don't have an ID on these. We know that's a cash-in class. We were getting a lot of echoes off of these guys. Let's see. Not responding to our ID request. None of these are. Okay, yep, that's our blockade runners. Those are our blockade runners. So let's set a course to, let's lay in a course to intercept them and go from there. Means these are also likely blockade runners. Yep, that's confirmed to be a cash-in class. Okay. So far, they haven't started shooting at anything. That's good. Let's see. We're probably going to have to start engaging these because they won't wave off if we order them to. Are we in gun range? Not yet. Let's see then. Anything else we can do with that? No. P3 is still closing. What's that noise just now? Like, what is that noise? Like, what is that? What is that? Ugh. That's kind of gross. We still don't know what these two are. That's the other problem. We know these are, that's a blockade runner. These are also likely blockade runners. Let's start getting some visual identification on them. Bring our altitude down to 1,000. Doesn't respond. Okay. So we know that is a neutral merchant as well. That's specific. That's a Japanese merchant ship. We can ignore that. Oh. What do we got? Okay, 7004 is neutral. Bremen Express, a German merchant, so we can ignore them. Things are about to get very interesting, though. Because we're closing on these blockade runners, and they are very close to those neutrals. The Kashin has stopped. Kashin has faded, probably because the P3 went down to a lower altitude. Let's see. Are we in range yet? Not quite. Okay. So let's speed things along a little. Yeah. I said we're going to lay in a course to intercept. Oh, shit. High-resolution photograph analysis of imagery captured by Corona mission KH-49031 reveals that at least one Project 627 submarine sortied from Murmansk last week and has not returned. Soviet ships carrying IRBMs are under submarine escort. Well, this is gonna complicate things! Hey, you! Start dropping sonobuoys. We don't know what the fuck's out there anymore. We don't know what the fuck's out there anymore. We need more information. Fire up the ASRock. We're gonna need it soon. Hold on that engagement. Speed ahead 2/3. We want to cut that cavitation. Nothing's going on up here. Things just got very interesting down in this sector, though. things just got very interesting down in this sector. Salute. Okay, we're back. Okay, we're back. I swear to God, every single time. But things just got very interesting. This blockade runner group likely has a submarine escorting it. We just received intel that a November-class submarine has sortied from Murmansk and not returned. So, now we panic a little. Now we panic a little. Because there's a submarine out here. Possibly. There's possibly a submarine out here. And that is a very dangerous problem. Yeah, no, we have to find that submarine and deal with it. That is now our new priority. The blockade runners can wait. Gloriosamente resolvamini. Actually, Slep, it's funny you say that because you just gave me an idea for a potentially interesting rule to add to Battleship if you were actually going to play it. Ad eterni. So the idea, I'm going to call it the Sonobui rule. And the Sonobui rule is like this. The Sonobui rule is like this. You call out a square and you flip a coin. Here's how the Sonobui rule works. You call out a square and you flip a coin. If it you flip a coin. If it comes up whatever you called that coin, it drops a Sonobui, and you can find out. You have to call it for your turn. So you call heads or tails for your turn. Every time you flip that coin, you flip a coin, and let's say you call Sonobui E6. It'll put the Sonobui down, and you'll be able to know, hey, there is something. However, like there's something on this row or something on this column. You don't necessarily know what square it's on, but let's say it's like E6, Sonobui E6. You would know there's something on E, or you would know anything on that row or on that column. You would be able to know there's something there. You don't know what it is. You don't know exactly where it is on that row or column, but you know there's something on. You would know if there's something on both row E and column 6. You know there's something on row E and something on column 6. However, if you flip, and you can keep doing that as long as you keep flipping heads, and you can use that to start building up information. However, if you flip tails, your aircraft is shot down, and you can no longer call Sonobuis for the rest of your turn. And each player would have a limited number of Sonobui aircraft. So, like, you might only have, like, 3 Sonobui aircraft, or however many. I'm probably not the first person to come up with this rule, by the way, but it's something that just came to mind. So now it changes Battleship a little bit from just being your first shot is a wild guess to more on the information management side of things. That's still a surface contact. That's the cash-in from earlier. Oh, submarine's up. Cancel previous Sonobui drops. Buoy here. We need more precise information to classification on this being hostile submarine. Oh boy. Things just got very interesting very quickly. We're not in ASRock range. Come on, make your turn. Keep popping those noisemakers as well. We don't want them to, we want them to get a little bit, we want them to be kind of confused on our exact location. Ultra arimenta salutem pavidos mea requiescest salutem pavidos mea judicum est expergis scimini saltem magnus ista ultra arimenta. Mea restauratio est. These are a big fucking problem. Salutem pavidos. Mea restauratio est. Salutem pavidos. Nolite timere. Gloriosame te resolvamini. Cut speed and make like a hole in the water. We want as little wake as possible for them to go off of. Come on. Come on. Make your drop. Weapons are away. New buoy down. Continue the engagement. All stop. All right, that should basically let the torpedoes go right past us. We have no wake right now, and they're kind of gonna be busy. They're kind of gonna be busy dealing with these. Look at him run! Look at him run! He's so scared! He's so afraid right now! Hit track! Let's keep punching that glow boat. Mea restauratio est. Salutem pavidos. Nolite timere. In case you're wondering why I'm flying very low like this right now, it's because the P3 has a very special instrument on its back end that requires us to fly very low to be useful. See this thing right here on the back? It's called a magnetic anomaly detector. Basically, it's a glorified metal detector because submarines are made of steel. Oh. Oh, shit. What have we got? What have we got? What have we got? That's a surface ship. Okay. It's probably just the torps. Okay. It's probably just the torps. Unless there's another submarine out here, in which case, fuck. All right. Power. Ahead 2/3. The torpedoes have gone past. We should be safe now. All right. Let's start prosecuting this engagement. Y'all thought y'all were slick with the submarine. Uh-uh. Now you die. Salutem pavidos, mea requies est. Salutem pavidos, mea judicium est. Expergis gemini, saltem magnos, ista ultra arimenta. Salutem pavidos, mea requies est. Salutem pavidos, mea judicium est. Expergis gemini, saltem magnos, ista ultra arimenta. Oh. Oh, there's more of them! Power, ceasefire, ceasefire! Ahead 1/3. That son of a bitch isn't dead! Either they got one more salvo off in their last dying act, or that son of a bitch isn't actually dead. Shit. There's another group of 3 coming in right now. We got one merchant, though. Salutem pavidos, mea requies est. Salutem pavidos, mea judicium est. Expergis gemini, saltem magnos, ista ultra arimenta. Salutem pavidos. Good. Buoy is away. Power is ahead 1/3. There was something there for a minute. There was something there for a minute. Go down low, pass over. There was something there for a minute. They were going real quiet. Someone's either popping noisemakers or something else is going on here. I don't know what it was. I don't know if y'all saw that. There was a very short-lived new contact on the display. We're going to start using the MAD here, see if we can pick it up. Sonobuoys aren't getting it. They must be going super low, super slow. Let's start a MAD scan profile, see if we can pick it up. There's something out here. I don't know what, but there's still something out here. Gloriosamente resolva amine. There have been no new launch transients, so it might be that that was just the last act of that November's crew, of the K5's crew, but I'm not so sure of that. There was a very brief contact we picked up on one of those sonobuoys. There might be a second submarine out here. We're going to act as if there is, just in case. Okay, I think we beat those torpedoes. Just to be sure, we're going to go all stop. So we have no wake. Nothing. It doesn't seem like there's any new torpedoes as well. So hold for a minute. All right, ahead 2/3. Trying to intercept this other merchant while we're here. Realize another possibility. There it is again! What the fuck is going on here? Babilos. Ahead 1/3. There's something out here. It keeps popping up. I don't know what it is, but it's out there. Probably hiding right underneath one of the buoys. I just noticed that now. I'm curious, what are these carrying on them? Nothing. Okay. Well, it doesn't tell us exactly what they do. We're going to run another MAD scan, and then we're going to drop some more sonobuoys, because there's something there. There is something there. I'm sure of it now. Even if it's just launch transients. Those could be launch transients, in which case that's a big problem. Something is here. I don't know what, but there's something here. I keep getting these brief transients from the buoys that something is here. I don't know what, but there's something here. And I need to find it because if I don't, it's a big fucking problem. Let's give it some bait. Maybe that'll get it interested. Could be leftover noisemakers, could be nothing. But I keep getting these very brief transients on some of the buoys that something's out here. There's something in the water. I don't know what, and that's a problem. Let's see if it'll actually drop the buoy this time. I don't think it dropped the buoy. I think it just flew over where it was supposed to drop the buoy and it didn't drop the buoy. Just kind of weird. All right, we've got nothing in the nothing yet on the scopes. Buoys aren't reporting anything new. Let's see if that changes. There's the buoy. Put one here now. Let's start getting a pattern going. This will be our sort of long-range interrogator, along with those other three in the triangle, just to see if there's any discrepancies they might be missing. Salutem pavidos. They aren't picking up anything yet, but I don't like this. Okay, seems like things might be clear. Let's have you go back up to 6,000. Maintain your loiter. You're on radar, so I know you're not a submarine. Because if you would be, that would be a big fucking problem. A surface submarine like that would probably mean it's an Echo 2 class, which would be much more dangerous than the November we just dealt with. Also, I think a little bit too early. It's a little bit too early to run into the Echo 2s. I don't think the Echoes showed up into service until like 67 at the earliest. I can check, see if it says submarine, guided missile submarine, Echo 2 class. No, but we can look real quickly here as well. Echo class submarine. These were a derivative of the November, if memory serves right. First entered service in 1960. So yeah, never mind. The Echo 2 class is a very real possibility, if highly unlikely. That's the BIMOC. That's the power. Are we in gun range yet? Not yet. What have we got? Nothing new there. Nothing new there. That's the surface escort for another group of blockade runners, so we don't have to worry about them just yet. They're doing all right. It's nothing over there. This is a decent. This should put us onto an intercept course, and then we can run them down from there. Okay. Free to fire. Free to fire. Start the engagement, power. Actually, I'm curious if this ship's actually named after who the ship's actually named after, because it's named after someone in particular. Surface ship, destroyer, gearing class, Fram 1. It is the DD-839. Nope, it's just listed as the USS Power. No first names. Okay. Ceasefire, Power. Ceasefire. Wait on those salvos to land. See if that did enough damage or not. She's burning. Speed still at 10 knots. That crew is dedicated, I'll give them that much. But she is burning. There's no way she's going to last very long. Yep, she just lost propulsion. Speed's going down. I like these little sonobuoys. They're goofy looking with a little red hat sticking out of the water. And then down here. So what these are, by the way, is actually kind of interesting. Basically, it's a thing that floats in the water with a bunch of really sensitive microphones. And those really sensitive microphones are listening for anything that might just show up, in the water and go from there. Salutem pavidos, mea requies est, salutem pavidos, mea judicium est, expergis gemini, saltem magnos, ista ultra arimenta. Radar contact, identify yourself. Doesn't seem like they're talking. That might be another blockade runner. So we're going to want these two groups to meet up, and then we'll go from there. They'll be there 1927. Power will be there 5 minutes in advance. And then we can engage the Cashin and her merchant group. Salutem pavidos. Let's have the P3 go and identify this one real quickly. We don't know what it is. It might be another blockade runner, in which case we'll need the Power to stick around this side. They're going about 26 knots. Power's going a bit slower so that they'll synchronize, the meeting will synchronize up. So we know none of those are hostile, so that's fine. Oh, got something new. Could be... It's not a Cashin A or anything like that. They are complying, though. It's just the Curacao Maru. Okay. That's the Curacao Maru. We can ignore them. But we also don't know where that damn Cashin is. So let's go back up to 6,000. See if we can get more. See if we can reacquire it either through ESM or surface search. Yep, there they are. We've got ESM contact. All right, that's the Mercara. We're probably kind of annoyed at us right now because we asked them to identify themselves earlier, and now we're asking them again. that is the cash-in I was talking about before. So we know what that is for sure. What is this? Almost certainly a merchant. Let's see if they'll identify themselves. Okay, good. That's just the Flinders Bay. We can ignore that as well. Let's see then. Run this time a little bit forward, see if we get any new information. We know those are just, okay, that's just the neutrals fading, so we don't have to worry about them. Nothing else new though, so we'll just let time run and see how long it takes for these two surface groups to meet up with each other. Once they do, they'll have to deal with this group up here. Oh, we got something new. This is just the same thing. Okay, so there's either two destroyers or... It's like this. There's two destroyers flicking the radars on back and forth between each other so that we don't actually have the exact fix on them. Keep that a little bit standoff distance away from the destroyers, because as soon as they can, they're probably going to try and shoot down our patrol aircraft and keep us from seeing them. All right, nothing new there. Nothing new there. Nothing. Are we in range to use the Taloses on them? Not yet. Okay. We know that's probably just the Flinders Bay. Wait, hold on. Let's make sure. Let's make sure that's just the Flinders Bay. Unit reference. Tattletales. This is probably what was telling. This is probably what was telling the submarine our location. Fuck. But can't really do anything about it. So, and the submarine's gone too, so it doesn't matter that much. So let's just keep things moving, see if we can get an actual track on these. Come on. Good, we got them back now. Let's check our engagement. Let's check our range. Still not close enough. Unless we are, in which case, we know what they are. We know what this is, but we don't know. No, we're not close enough. Already tell from here we're not close enough. Okay. But we're starting to link up and meet, which means we'll be in a better position to actually do something when we are close enough. So really now it's just a waiting game. Now it's just a bunch of waiting for shit to actually get in position. Man, it reminds me as well. So this part, this part, not so much. This is surface. This is a surface engagement, which isn't nearly as much of an issue. But when we were dealing with that submarine earlier, it reminds me of what is one of my favorite little bits of naval lore. and that is specifically anti-submarine warfare, or ASW, often has another nickname, awfully slow warfare, because an actual like anti-submarine engagement can take days to run through. It's like hours to find it, identify it, and it can take hours or days to find something, identify it, and get enough information to shoot at it. It's basically naval warfare in slow motion, just because you have so little sensor data to work with. Even the submarine is like that. The submarine will have to track its target. Often submarines will have to track their targets for weeks at a time, trying to find them before they could start following them. And that's without actually trying to shoot at them. That's just getting to their target and getting close enough to be able to shoot at them, not even trying to shoot at them. Everything involving submarines happens very slowly. Hence the name, awfully slow warfare. Guns are not in range. Well, the Talos isn't in range, so why would the guns be in range? What about power? Not in range either. Let's see. We should be able to engage the Kashyans before they can engage us. The Talos has got a fairly decent anti-surface range, but we'll see what happens from there. Nothing new there. Okay, power should be arriving on station soon. Galveston's group is also arriving now. Let's see what we got here. Kashyans coming in. Let's see what you are. Only the merchant that go with it. Okay, so we've got 2 Kashyans for sure. That's what I was wondering. Is like we've got 2 Kashyans for sure. Let's see if they're in Talos range yet or not. No. So we can kind of just do this real quickly. Hold here and basically dare them to come at us and actually start shit. Meantime, the Galveston and the Brownson are gonna go here. And that should keep them all together in a nice little group to work with afterwards. Might even have power just join Galveston's formation so we can use them all together as a single group. It would make sense now that I'm thinking about it. Let's see then. We don't know for sure what this is, but it's almost certainly a Kashian. Yeah, it's almost certainly a Kashian. It could be a cannon, but it doesn't really make much of a difference if it is. It's still a small Soviet destroyer with, small Soviet destroyer. I mean, it maybe is the difference is only one of them has guided missiles, but it doesn't really matter is the point. So let's see what we got here. Kashian. Let's see. Information. This is what I wanted to know. Nothing there. Nothing there. Information. Nothing on those. Well, we know this is a hostile formation. And they're almost in range, actually, so we might be able to start this engagement soon. Alright, the other rare surface contacts are coming in, and it seems like whatever was accompanying the Kashian has decided it's not going to open fire yet. So let's wait until we're in Talos range, and then we'll fire off our shots. Galveston's going to be pretty busy here, actually, because it can reach out and touch them before anyone else can. But aside from that, well, we'll see. Just gonna have to wait for them to get closer. Okay, we're in range. Let's see. What are we gonna put on for this? Oh, I know what we'll put on. I know exactly what we'll put on for this engagement. Okay. We're in range. Start the engagement. Da-na-na-na. Talos take a little while to warm up, so that's why they're not launching out nearly as quick. I remember this is actually one of the distinctively notable disadvantages of Talos, actually, is that the missiles actually take a while to get going. Because they have to be assembled. They're not actually stored in an assembled ready state. They actually have to be assembled in the magazine and then loaded onto the launcher. Where's the other one? Okay, missile is out. Don't want that missile going back into the magazine. We want to have it ready to go, just in case. Oh, intercept failed! Boom! Yeah, they're having a bad day. Dun, 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 dun. There's two of them. Okay. That's what I was wondering. There are, in fact, two destroyers in that formation. In that surface action group. Reposition ourselves a bit. Have the power move up as well. This one's almost certainly doomed. Let's go for the other then. Yeah, that much fire, that many secondaries. We can basically count that one out of the fight now. So let's get in position to engage the next one. This is also going to be... Oh! It's a cannon class, actually. It's the other Soviet destroyer class. Interesting. Do they both have... Yeah, they both have the Volna, then. Ah, that's... Oh, that's a problem. More suitable to anti... Okay, no, they don't have the SSN-1 system anymore. That's what I was wondering. They got rid of the SSN-1 system, so I don't have to worry about that. Just have to worry about the... Yep, I was right, though. It's a cannon class. I got to worry about those torpedoes, but other than that, we should be fine. This is getting really, really uncomfortable now, though. Because the closer we have to get to this guy, the more likely he's going to be able to reply in kind with his own SAM system in its secondary anti-surface mode, or he'll be able to use his heavyweight torpedoes on us. So we're going to want to run this pretty quick and pretty brief. Want to have minimum engagement time if possible, and get our shot off first. Man, I really don't like. I'm honestly just really glad I was able to successfully deal with the submarine. That thing has been a thorn in my side so many times in this scenario. I have not actually been able to successfully deal with that submarine until today. Until today. Every time I've tried to deal with this thing in the past, it did not work out. We got more surface contacts. Rip, bozo. Goodbye, bot. Goodbye. Nice try. Something else new here. Could be another cache-in. Could be more Soviet destroyers. So want to keep an eye out for that one. Yep, it's back now. 7042 is back. Information. Nothing really to work with here. Can we engage that cannon yet? Not quite. Here we go, though. Actually, no, I don't want this one. I want bunker shot. That's what I want. I want bunker shot. Dun dum bada 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 bum bum bada 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 bum 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 bum. Okay, we're in range. Start the engagement. All right, we're making our turn to launch, unmasking the launcher, and that the Soviet destroyer is about to have a really, really shit day. Any new information on this contact? Nothing yet. Okay. They shouldn't yet be in range to use their own weapons on us. As a memory serves me right, the Talos is particularly known for its very long range. Galveston is unmasking her launcher. We'll probably use the second shot on this because it's very likely this is a hostile, this is a Soviet blockade runner. But we don't know yet for sure. We'll fire off a second shot to keep the launcher warm. And they might also be able to intercept it at this range. They tried to last time, and they actually got pretty close. So I don't want to take that chance. So we're gonna make sure with the second shot, just to be certain. Oh no, they aren't actually firing off any. Oh, there's the chaff. Yep, I knew it was a good idea to fire a second shot. I knew it was a good idea to fire off at least a second shot, possibly more. Are we in gun range yet? Not yet. Brownson won't be in gun range either, so we can hold off on that. We could have the Brownson actually go in and make things more interesting, make things more difficult for them with their guns, so that way they don't have as much time to respond to our missile shots. It's probably not a bad idea now that I'm thinking about it. Power will also follow them in. That way we have multiple vectors, we have multiple attack vectors. Maintain pressure. Galveston will maintain pressure on that destroyer until the on the cannon until our destroyers get closer. Unmasking the launcher. Missile is away. Let's see what this one does. Is it going to hit? Is it going to go for the chaff? We're going to find out soon. They aren't firing off any interceptors, which is interesting, actually. They are using pretty heavy chaff, though. But looks like it's not enough. Right under the guns. Into the magazine. Well, that's a dead destroyer. These two will continue on their course, though, because they'll be able to engage the blockade runners. They come in. Wonder, where was that fire coming from just now? Ah, there it is. It's from these right here. AK-230s. I was wondering where that CWIS fire was coming from. It doesn't matter because it didn't save them. But I was wondering where it came from. Well, we have the answer now, though. Watch this. And 1. And 2. Oh yeah, no, this thing is fucked. This thing is fucked now. So Power and Brownson will just have to deal with the blockade runners. Other than that, I mean, yeah, we're done here. Or either they'll have to deal with the blockade runners, or the loss of their escort will have the blockade runners turn away. We'll see which one it ends up being. Yep. Okay, that's definitely those are definitely blockade runners. I kind of knew they were, but that's just confirmation. Are we in gun range on the Galveston? No. The Power and Brownson should be able to do this part of the job, though. There shouldn't be any other escorts left either, so let's have our patrol aircraft fly over and maintain good sights on them. That's the Bratslav, which means that'll be the Chelyabinsk. Both of which are carrying IRBMs from everything we're seeing on this. From everything we've been briefed on, I should say. Let's get this in closer, get more visual confirmation, and we'll go from there. Yep, so we still got the Bratslav. We know this is, yeah, that's the Chelyabinsk, I was right. So we've got the Bratslav and the Chelyabinsk lined up. We know which ones are which. Are we in gun range? Brownson is in range to engage the Bratslav. How much longer until Chelyabinsk is in range? A little while. Let's bring her up to a head full. That should fix that problem. I don't know why I had this. I know why this thing was down at that speed. It was because we were dealing with that submarine earlier. I don't know why I never brought it back up, though. That was dumb. That was dumb on my part. That was dumb as hell. All right, Bratslav is sinking, so we don't need to worry about it anymore. Chelyabinsk is not in range for the Brownson to deal with it. The power will probably get there first. Let's just check, though. Not quite. All right. Brownson and Power are now both in range to engage. This should be over pretty quickly. Let's see how long it takes. And then once this is done, we'll probably call it here for the night. Once this last merchant is down. How long is this going to take, I wonder? Oh, we got to basically the flight time of the shells. The flight time of the shells plus however many it takes to actually bring it down. That's going to be the real question. It's a merchant, so it shouldn't take very long, but let's see. In the meantime, while we're waiting on that, I'm going to go figure out who we can go say hello to. Who have we not raided in a little while now? That's the real question. I wonder if there's anybody else playing this as well. Probably not, but I'm curious. Ooh, there's actually one other person doing it. There's actually two other people right now. Let's see, though. Aside from that, who else is around? Pecan is on. We might actually go yell at her, see what she's up to. That's probably what we're going to do. Yeah, we're going to yell at Pecan, see what she's up to. So, down goes the Chelyabinsk. And like I said, let's go see what, now that that's over with, let's go see, while she's sinking, let's go and say hello to Pecan, see what she's up to, shall we? Once again, as always, you want to see what I'm up to off stream, you can find me in all of these wonderful places. Twitter, Discord, Blue Sky. Mostly Discord and Blue Sky. I'm pretty much only technically on Twitter still. As for the raid message, well, I know that's already pretty obvious. That's already pretty obvious what that's going to be. And down she goes. And with that, I say to everyone here, thank you